and thanks for joining us for another edition of Northwest Newsweek. I'm Mitchell Ringos. Well, the community of Sioux Lookout is rallying to support dozens of seniors displaced by a major fire at a KDSB seniors housing facility 2 weeks ago. The fire decimated one wing of the building, but some tenants have already been moved back into the undamaged units. Lee Noonan has the story.
11 units at the back of Patricia Plaza were destroyed in the February 4th fire, but officials say all 27 of the elderly tenants who were home at the time were evacuated without injury.
People started banging on the walls saying, "Fire, get out, get out." We barely had time to get dressed. Just grab what you could.
On Thursday, 11 tenants were moved back into the least damaged parts of the building, according to the KDSB. Many others, including Votary, have been able to return to collect their things. But for those in the units near the epicenter of the fire, that won't be possible.
Yeah, there were seniors who didn't have insurance who lost everything. And so so I think as a collective, as a community, we're working hard to make sure that when they move back home, that they won't be moving to an empty home.
It's not one of those, well, let's try, see if we can do this. They say we can promise that even if you don't have fire insurance or apartment insurance, they'll cover anything you need.
Mayor Doug Lawrence says he's grateful to the citizens and organizations of Sioux Lookout who've stepped up to help out.
And the community has responded tremendously to the fire, whether it be church groups or individuals, businesses, agencies. It was a wonderful response.
I knew that as soon as this happened, it was right beside my office, literally, that nobody was going to have insurance or anything like that. And my wife and I decided probably about an hour and a half after the fire to start the donations jar.
Hogue says they've raised more than $2,500 so far and hope to see that number go a lot higher. The fire has been ruled non-suspicious and is believed to have been caused by an electrical issue. Wall says emergency systems worked well and the fire was limited to one wing of the building, with only smoke or water damage in the remaining 26 units.
A unit could cost about $300,000 to rebuild, depending on the size. And so it's, it could be anywhere 2, 3, 4 million. It's quite substantial.
There's no firm timeline as to how long it may take to rebuild from the devastating fire. For now, everyone's just happy that residents were able to get out of the building safe and sound. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
Meanwhile, 30 people in Shoal Lake First Nation near Kenora have been left homeless after a 6-unit apartment complex was destroyed by a fire last weekend. The $1.5 million building burned down last Saturday morning. The cause of the blaze is unknown, but arson is not suspected. Some residents suffered minor injuries, but were able to get medical aid quickly. The chief and council, along with the Kenora Chiefs Advisory, have sent the displaced residents to Winnipeg, but are exploring solutions to bring them home. A GoFundMe page has been set up to help those affected. Nearly $25,000 has been raised so far. Nipawin OPP responded to a fatal collision Wednesday morning on the Wolf River Bridge near Dorian. 2 SUVs collided head-on at around 10 a.m. One of the drivers, a 77-year-old Winnipeg resident, was pronounced dead at the scene. A passenger in that vehicle remains in hospital with life-threatening injuries. 2 people in the other SUV were also hurt. It was one of several collisions during Wednesday's winter storm, which shut down highways around the region. Most of the other collisions involved transports, leading to closures of Highway 102 from Sistonen's Corner to Ada Avenue, Highway 11 from Long Lac to Hearst, and Highway 17 from Terrace Bay to Marathon. OPP say fortunately there were no serious injuries in any of those other crashes. All the major highways were fully reopened by Thursday afternoon. A Marathon resident is lucky to be alive. Following a dramatic crash on Highway 17 last Saturday, Bethany Cummings escaped serious injury after she was hit by an oncoming tractor trailer, causing her vehicle to flip multiple times.
Then I just heard a bunch of bangs and crashes, and I started rolling and rolling and rolling.
Miraculously, Cummings suffered only minor injuries after her pickup truck flipped about 10 times and came to rest on its side in the middle of Highway 17. She was able to climb out of the window to safety An OPP say the driver of the transport truck, which went down an embankment and overturned, also sustained non-life-threatening injuries and has been charged with careless driving. Amazingly, Cummings says the scary crash only left her with bruising, a possible broken bone in her hand, and a headache. She believes her quick reaction in turning the steering wheel away from the transport is what saved her.
I think it 100% saved my life. I think by instinct, I honestly don't remember like thinking to turn the wheel. It was just your instinct. You had one way to go and you just had to do it. And thank goodness I did, or else I truly don't think I'd be here today.
Meanwhile, on the Sandy Lake Winter Road last Friday, a collision between a Vallard construction fleet truck and an oncoming transport injured 3 workers, one of whom was hospitalized. According to a statement from Vallard, they were initially treated at the North Spirit Medical Clinic and before being airlifted to more advanced medical facilities. The company said the accident happened when the northbound Vallard crew cab contracted the trailer of the southbound semi on a curve at the 80-kilometer mark. A potential hydroelectric dam north of Lake Nipigon is back on the table in a new report released by the Ontario Power Generation. The Little Jackfish River project has been studied for decades but was shelved in 2015. OPG spokesperson Neil Kelly says it's the first of many potential new hydro dams being fast-tracked by Northern Ontario.
We've identified there's 3,000 to 4,000 megawatts that's available in the north, and so we'd like to start moving on that. And we've identified the Little Jackfish project as one that is probably the closest in terms of shovel ready.
The report released to the public last week by OPG came after a request by Ontario Energy Minister Todd Smith urging the utility to start planning for new power projects immediately to serve the province's growing energy needs. The Little Jackfish Dam would be modest in scope, producing about 80 megawatts of power. Kelly says OPG had already developed good relationships with nearby First Nations to partner in the project when the plan was suddenly halted 8 years ago.
At that time, it was identified that there was no real need for the electricity. It's a different story now and going forward, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is, as you know, there's been a major transmission line project, the East-West tie, that has been completed in the Northwest. And so that means that there now is a vehicle, there's transmission to move power from Jackfish and into other parts of the province.
Kelly adds that the Jackfish project would be a major job creator for this region and would produce clean, renewable power for 100 years or more. Some of the other potential dams are on the Albany and Attawapiskat rivers, which Kelly says could help power future mines in the Ring of Fire. A trio of education institutions are receiving $2.1 million of federal funding to support the future workforce in the region. Ottawa Training and Wellness Centre, Lakehead University, and Confederation College are the beneficiaries, and the goal is to create new employment opportunities. Vasilios Bellos reports.
Training, skill development, and employment in the region is the focus of $2.1 million in FedNor funding. It was announced at the Ottawa Training and Wellness Centre, which is receiving $1 million, by Minister Patty Hajdu, who's responsible for FedNor.
What we anticipate is going to be a really busy economic time with the demand for critical minerals, the new critical minerals strategy released by the federal government. In order to fully maximize the benefit to Northern Ontario, we need to make sure we have skilled people, and that's what these programs will do.
Ottawa Training and Wellness Centre will use the funding to support its project to increase skills development. Plans are to renovate the second floor with the construction and upgrade of 5 classrooms, a computer lab, an apprenticeship workshop, and more. President Rosemary Muniz says that these improvements will set their students up for success in the workforce.
So we're going to have a lot of technology within the building and accessible to all the students. It'll give them greater experience as they go out and get jobs. They'll have a more experience to add to their resumes, and yeah, it'll be really good for them.
Confederation College is using their nearly $900,000 in funding for their Evergreen Outdoor Classroom project, which will include medicine gardens, a teepee location, and technology to enable remote learning in First Nations communities. President Kathleen Lynch believes this will make all students feel more comfortable at the college.
All our students really enjoy outdoor facilities, period. So it's going to create more of a welcoming environment for our Indigenous students, as well as other students who want to learn about Indigenous culture and become more knowledgeable about where we live in Northwestern Ontario. So it's important in that respect.
The remaining $233,000 is going to the Lakehead University Center for Environmental Stewardship program. It will see school faculty working with industrial partners, the Indigenous community, and municipalities on improved natural resource initiatives. Vasilios Bellos, TBT News.
And after the break, Mattawa Tribal Council made a big donation to Thunder Bay's underground gym. Welcome back. Mattawa First Nations management has made a $20,000 contribution towards the underground gym and youth center. The money is to support ongoing youth programming and some upcoming renovation projects at the facility. Handing over the donation to underground gym founder Peter Panetta was Mattawa CEO David Paul Pinescum, who says the gym has invested in members of the Mattawa community who live in Thunder Bay for over 20 years. He says they wanted to give back to the organization that has made their members feel welcomed and supported in the community. And even though $20,000 is a large donation, Achni Pinescum says the gym needs more, and he made a call to action for others.
We cannot just rely on other organizations to help our people. We got to do it ourselves too. And that's why we encouraging other Indigenous organizations, First Nation organizations here in the city, come on and help out as well.
Panetta was welcoming to the idea of more funding and thankful for the $20,000, as the underground gym does not have core funding, meaning they rely on donations like this. Panetta says the money will be put towards new programming and future plans, including renovations of the second floor. But he says this announcement is about more than just funding.
I'm so happy that we have connected. And I think this is not just about money. I really believe that David, Paul, and I can make more happen for the children. Together, we can make a lot more happen for the children. I mean, you know, it's a partnership that I think works well.
And Panetta says around 90% of his clients are Indigenous, with roughly 25% of them being Mattawa members. We talked to one parent who regularly brings her children to the center, as she said this funding is very encouraging for the future.
I think that's be very beneficial for all the attendees of the underground gym. There's so much possibilities. It opens up so much options for the gym to expand their services to all the children and youth who utilize them.
There were no roses or cinnamon hearts at the Dryden Friendship Center this Valentine's Day. The color red took on a very different meaning as the organization held its annual MMIWG2S Memorial March. Lee Noonan was there.
About 175 community members, students, and Friendship Center staffers took to the streets of Dryden to remember mothers, sisters, daughters, and friends lost or murdered, both here and in Indigenous communities across the country.
This type of support, this type of engagement and awareness about the issue, I think is vitally important, especially to this region. I don't know too many families who haven't been affected by missing and murdered Indigenous women, including my own.
Executive Director Cheryl Edwards says she's walking for her late aunt and for a close friend who was murdered. Tiffany Thompson, the lead organizer for the march, says Edwards is far from the only one for whom the event hits close to home.
There are so many individuals that are affected by this. I'm sure there's many people here that have family and friends that have been affected by this. I know there are numerous individuals in the Friendship Center also that have affected by this. Even if someone doesn't identify someone immediately, there's definitely the effect through the community.
Roughly 80 high school students left class to join in the walk. Thompson says it's very important to include the next generation in events like these.
So when we have these youth attending, they become aware of these issues. And it's important to be aware of these issues in order to end the violence and hate.
Edwards explains that while the red dress represents women and girls who should still be here, the red handprint symbolizes the silencing of the issue.
For so many years, many of our women were silenced, and there was not a voice put to the amount of women that were missing or murdered. I think in general there is more awareness, there's more understanding, there's more cultural understanding, and there's more relationship building that's happened specifically in Dryden.
Organizers here at the Friendship Center say they're really happy with the turnout at this year's walk and with the increase in support they've been seeing year after year from the Dryden community and from leadership here in the city. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
The Thunder Bay Chamber of Commerce held their Prosperity Northwest Business Conference and Trade Show this week in partnership with the Anishinaabe Business Professional Association. The event gave businesses the chance to convene and strengthen their connections with each other, but as Mike Lang reports, they also got to learn about some of the most important opportunities available to them.
Mining, energy, and forestry were the main topics of discussion at the full-day Prosperity Northwest Conference, as local businesses learn that those sectors present the greatest opportunities for growth in northwestern Ontario. They also learned that the best way to take advantage of those opportunities is by investing into infrastructure and procurement, and by building stronger connections with the provincial government to seek more support for their business.
Make sure your business is, on the radar of the government of Canada, the government of the province, and the municipal government, as well as those large mines. They all need to buy stuff. How do you make sure that your business is there? So lots of great information, and hoping that will lead to some really positive developments for the businesses that are here.
The other main focus of the conference was the partnership between the Thunder Bay Chamber of Commerce and the Anishinaabe Business Professional Association, which highlighted the success of Indigenous businesses in the Northwest.
What's important is that we work together, we look at opportunities together, we look at situations that can be created that makes the most business sense for everyone, not just all the business, not just Indigenous or non-Indigenous, but everyone. So that's important.
Being able to work together to make sure that we're all talking in the same room, and the ABPA's members are here with chamber members and folks from across the region, whether they're from remote communities or from the city of Thunder Bay, all talking together. It's all about getting to make those contacts and finding out who you need to talk to so that you can make sure you have an opportunity.
The 300-plus attendees also had the chance to network with 50 different exhibitors representing local businesses from across the region. Their collaboration is the ultimate step for their growth, according to Davey.
I think it's just fantastic. Would you look around and see all the number of people that are here and talking and mingling and just looking at the opportunities together and see what we can do to work together? Fantastic. Great stuff.
Mike Lang, TBT News.
And when we come back, we spoke with Couchiching journalist Ryan McMahon about his new mini-series, Thunder Bay. Welcome back. A new 4-part docu-series called Thunder Bay was released this Friday on Crave. The controversial series focuses on racism and the deaths of multiple Indigenous people in the city. It's produced and hosted by Anishinaabe journalist Ryan McMahon, who also created the popular Canada Land podcast on the same topic. Jonathan Wilson reports.
The new docu-series is hitting Crave on Friday, which looks to uncover the truth behind the mysterious deaths of Indigenous people and systemic racism in Thunder Bay.
I knew some of what we would find.
Do not spit on me!
But I had no idea we would find what we did.
The series is hosted and produced by Ryan McMahon, a member of the Couchiching First Nation near Fort Frances. McMahon says it was important to build on his popular podcast of the same name, as he believes there are common circumstances to the deaths of many Indigenous people in Thunder Bay.
Stories like this take place all over the place. However, these particular stories and the way young Indigenous people die and the way Indigenous people die inside the city are very particular. And so in looking at that, we wanted to continue the conversation around how and why young people die inside the city of Thunder Bay.
The series also looks at some high-profile cases in the city that gained national attention, including the Braden Bushby manslaughter sentencing.
So like in the realm of possibility, could there have been someone targeting Indigenous people?
There's also a strong focus on the 7 fallen feathers, the Indigenous students that lost their lives while in Thunder Bay for high school. Along with this, the significant number of Indigenous people found dead in waterways is discussed, and how the Thunder Bay Police handled those and other Indigenous death investigations.
As a result of broken trust in 2018, this unleashes a whole new slew of reinvestigations into 9 plus 1 particular deaths, so 10 in total. And what we found through the making of this series was that those 10 death reinvestigations were so troubling that those doing the reinvestigations themselves were telling us, we just are not sure that we can trust the source material.
For those who did listen to his podcast, McMahon believes this TV docuseries will offer a more nuanced and contextual experience. The first 2 episodes will be released on Crave this Friday, with the other 2 available on the 24th. Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
Anishinaabe Aski Nation has since released a statement acknowledging that the content of the series may be triggering for grieving families and communities. They encourage anyone who's affected to seek out support. The new Kenora Justice Center has revealed a bright woodland-style mural created by Anishinaabe artist Blake Anjaneb. The new Kenora Justice Center is an Indigenous-led facility that aims to reduce the Indigenous population in local jails and offer a number of social services. Anjaneb, an artist from Lac Seul First Nation, had the idea to create something bright and loud in an effort to uplift the community.
All right, this piece is the 7 grandfather teachings. I wanted it to be a piece for the community because everyone coming in and out of here, they'll see it. And yeah, I just wanted to uplift the space with something nice that everyone can enjoy.
Anjaneb says it's refreshing to see efforts being made to improve the justice system. And that's all the time we have for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.